This guy, man, he's in the woods again. Does he ever actually work? There are two very good reasons why I keep going and doing videos in the woods these days. We moved, and my desk is now in the middle of the house instead of a separate room. And the two very good reasons for me not doing them at home anymore, or very often anyway, is one of them's 9 and one of them will be 8 in a couple of days. So that's the reason why I don't do a lot of videos at home anymore, and it makes it a little bit more complicated. So I wanted to talk New Year's resolution, learn to speak. So on New Year's resolutions, I'm not one for doing a lot of things for particular days and events and what have you, but decided I would do one for today because that's January 1st, 2021. Don't really want to reflect. I'm not really setting any goals for this coming year. That's not what I want to talk about. What I wanted to talk about was a goal that I had set earlier in the year and how that has translated to now. And of course, we're going to throw in the spiritual application of it. So sometime throughout the summer, I cannot remember when I started, probably around August, I'd go for an hour-long walk. And during that, I would listen to a podcast on the history of my denomination, which was really interesting, to me anyway. Then I decided that I wanted to maybe start to do some running to get back into shape for floor hockey in case the whole COVID thing kind of blew over and slacked off. I decided to start running. And I know that I have a problem with shin splints, and the shin splint that I get is right here usually. So I decided I would just go for a minute. I'd run for a minute, and I was in my court shoes, which are not running shoes. Got a phone call right in the middle of that. So yeah, ran in court shoes, that's where I was. And I got wicked shin splints for several days. And so I started to talk to an uncle, and he said that the only time he had shin splints was when he had poor shoes. And I did not have proper running shoes. I had court shoes, which are made much differently. So I said, okay. So I went into our local running room, which is a store, and they took a look at my feet, and they determined that I had some pronation. So my foot tilts in a bit, and that puts your shin out of alignment with your big toe, and all sorts of things take place. And then if you're running over distances, you cause all sorts of problems. So they pointed me to the proper footwear to use, and I picked out a pair that fit quite well, and also ended up putting in an insert just to give me a little extra arch support, and away I went. And as many builders know, the most important thing that you have for building something is a proper foundation. And after I had the proper foundation, I was able to go, and the first run that I went on was 2 minutes of running and 3 minutes of walking, and I was supposed to do that 6 times. I didn't get all the way there on that first time, but needless to say, I did probably 4 or 5 times the amount of running, and I had no shin splints with the new shoes because I had the proper foundation. It took a period of about 4 months or so for me to build up to the point that I was able to reach my goal. And the goal, I decided, was going to be a 10K. Found a program that said Coach to 10K, and away I went. And it took me about 4 months to do, maybe a little bit more. I can't quite remember because anyway, I didn't keep perfect track. And a pastor friend from one of the districts close by came with me. We decided to make pastor weight a positive thing because we figured there are too many portly pastors, and we should encourage good health by example. So that was a little bit of a joke between us. And we did it. We did the 10K about a month or so ago, and we did it in an hour. I did it in an hour and 4 minutes to the second, basically, and he did it, I think, 8 to 10 seconds faster than I did. But he's also like 8 years younger than I am, so I'll take that as a win. You know, it took 9 weeks before I didn't have a miserable day running. And I'm not talking weather. I'm talking about the feeling like your lungs are bleeding, feeling like your legs are in pain or your feet are in pain. I had plantar fasciitis a few years ago, and that was threatening to come back. And so it was torment every step of the way until the 9-week mark, and something switched. And it went from being torment to enjoyable. And looking back, it was hard to see that there was really much progress happening between the first run and that 9-week mark. But once I hit that 9-week mark, a switch flipped, and running became so much easier. So much easier, in fact, that I was pushing myself a little bit too hard, and came close to giving myself a serious. I was worried about getting a stress fracture. I had a lot of pain in the inside of my shin, and I had to back off a little bit, a couple times. And the thing is, a journey from a couch to a 10K, or the couch to a 5K, or from a couch to a marathon, or an ultra marathon, doesn't matter. The hardest thing about getting to a 10K, for me, it wasn't the last step. It wasn't the last kilometer. It was the first step and the first kilometer. Putting on your shoes and walking out the door is the most difficult part of a 10K, hands down. And when it was raining, you didn't want to go do it, because sometimes in your journey, you got days that are not great. And our Christian journey is not a necessarily easy one either, in a way. And many of us have not even taken the first step yet, because, as I said, the first step in a journey it's the hardest. There's no question, it's the hardest. And we may start off thinking that we need to fix ourselves, that we need to make ourselves better, to stop doing some of the nasty little things that we're doing in order to make ourselves acceptable to God. But that's the foundation of salvation by works. And if you're going down that road, you will eventually make everybody around you and yourself miserable, because the bar is too high to reach. Or you may be on the other road, where you just figure, you know what, I'm a sinner, and God is just going to make allowances for all the evil that we do all around us, and once again we bring down everybody around us and destroy relationships through the acts of unlove or the sins that we do to one another. Or we can take a look at Jesus and his love, his mercy, and his righteousness towards us, and we can allow that to change us, and we can rely on his promise to give us a new heart and put a new spirit within us. So I'm going to read a verse here, 1 John 1:6, not John 1:6, 1 John 1:6. He who says he abides in him, who is Jesus, ought himself also to walk as he walked. Because if we are abiding in Christ, then we should be changed. We should be allowing his work in us should be changing us, and we should be walking in his footsteps. Also, in Philippians chapter 2, verses 13 to 16, it says, "For it is God who works in you both to will and to do for his good pleasure. Do all things without complaining and disputing, that you may become blameless and harmless children of God, without fault, in the midst of a crooked and perverse generation, among whom you shine as lights in the world, holding fast to the word of life. So here we see we are to walk as Jesus walked, and we are to allow him to do a work in us for his good pleasure, which is developing our character. We are given a new heart and a new spirit, and will no longer be doing these acts of what I call unlove towards our brothers and sisters. For instance, if you love your brother or sister in Christ, you would not be committing any adultery with or against them. And if you love your neighbor, you will not be stealing from him. And if you love God, you will not be having any gods before him. And you will be respecting him and the things that he has outlined. Because sin boils down to acts of unlove against God or unlove towards your neighbor. And as he changes us and puts his love in our heart, we are going to be causing less and less damage to people, because our acts of unlove will be fewer and fewer, because he will give us the victory over the things that are causing the things that are causing pain to others. So we are to walk as he walked, and it starts with the first step. And the first step is letting the door be opened as he's knocking on it. And it might be a slow start, might be a painful start. Might have a lot of bumps along the road, you might get a twisted ankle, might have a rainstorm, might get shin splints, might be a lot of pains and development, and it's going to get worse before it gets better, because all renovations do. But painful as it is, if we hold fast to him and let him do the work, when he brings us into heaven and we look back, we're going to look back with amazement at the changes that his power has done in us and how he has managed to restore us. We're going to be thinking about that for a long time. And then finally, for this year, may I suggest that you finally allow him in, because he's been knocking for a while, and let him into those parts of you that you know need repairing, that you know you need to be restored from. A lot of people have anger, bitterness, resentment, negative thoughts that they're not able to cope with. Maybe their temper or rage that you're not able to control, and your family is suffering from your outbursts. It's time to start the journey. Even if you have been a believer for a long time, for many years even, you may still not have actually started that journey of restoration, because maybe you haven't let him in yet. So let him in, let him fix it, and enjoy not having to make a New Year's resolution, because he's going to make changes in you that you're not even going to think that you needed to resolve. Anyway, have yourselves a wonderful day.